In the 22nd century, Earth had become a massive garbage dump. Due to humanity's reckless consumption and lack of concern for ecology, all the remaining survivors had left on a spaceship called Axiom, leaving behind garbage collecting robots to clean up the planet. However, the cleanup effort was a complete failure, and after 700 years, only one robot remained, named Wall-E. Wall-E worked while playing music, with a cockroach as his only companion. Whenever he found an interesting item, he would bring it back to his home, an old garbage compactor, and start collecting things like an old MOV. While watching that MOV, Wall-E longed for a companion to hold hands with every night or during a sandstorm. Wall-E slept on his shelves, turning into a cube when he needed to recharge, with sunlight powering his batteries. One afternoon, after a tense struggle, McCree tried to stand up and discovered a young plant in the fridge. He brought the plant home, and when he arrived, he saw a strange red dot appear on the ground. Wall began to follow the moving light, but then the red dot multiplied, and he discovered that the light was coming from a rocket descending. He quickly hid in a hole and watched as the rocket landed, then released a modern M-Odal named Eve. As soon as she landed, Eve started flying around, searching for her target. Wall instantly took a liking to Eve and followed her constantly, although he was still frightened every time she shot at something because she heard the noise. The cockroach was unafraid and approached Eve, causing her to shoot at it, but then she realized the cockroach was innocent and befriended it. Eve couldn't help but laugh as the cockroach crawled on her, which made Wall-E laugh too. When Eve heard Wall-E's laughter, she fired, and Wall-E quickly turned into a cube to avoid the bullet. Eve checked him, and when her scanner confirmed that Wall-E was just a garbage-collecting robot, she dismissed him and continued her search. Wall-E didn't give up, continuing to follow Evie, trying to impress her with gifts and games, but to no avail. Eve focused on her search, but gradually became frustrated at finding nothing. When a magnetic crane accidentally caught Eve, she became angry and burned all the machinery. Walls noticed she was in a bad mood and approached to comfort her, ultimately gaining Eve's friendship. At that moment, a sandstorm appeared nearby, causing Eve to panic, but Wall-E quickly pulled her into his home. He showed Eve the interesting items he had, and Eve knew how to use some of them, like the lighter that created fire. When Wall-E showed Eve his favorite MOV, Eve recorded the image. Eve tried to mimic Wall-E's dance, accidentally pushing him into the wall and damaging him. However, Wall-E wasn't worried because he had plenty of spare parts to repair himself. I wanted to hold Eve's hand, but she pulled hers away. Then I tried to impress Eve by showing her the young plant, and she immediately took the plant and hid it inside her body before switching to the hatch MO'd. It turned out that the living plant was Eve's target. Wall-E, in despair, tried everything to wake her up, from letting her soak in the sunlight to taking her out for a walk, but nothing worked. Finally, Wall-E gave up and returned to his work, only stopping to look at the lighter, remembering the time spent with Eve. Suddenly, a loud crash caught Wall-E's attention. The rocket had returned and was taking Eve away. Wall-E ran to grab the rocket's railing to follow her. The rocket reached space, and Wall-E was amazed at everything he saw, also using the proximity to the sun to recharge his energy. Eventually, they found Axiom hiding in a distant galaxy, and a fleet of cleaning robots greeted the rocket to clean up everything from potential pollution. A small robot named M.O. tried to clean Wall Fatah, but when the other robots took Eve away, Wall-E began to follow them, leaving a trail of mud behind. This caused M.O. to follow him as well. They reached a hallway where Wall discovered the truth about the current state of humanity. They had become obese and lazy and moving around on floating chairs with their eyes never leaving screens. All the tasks, from childcare to cooking, were done by robots. Wall's presence caught John's attention, causing him to fall off his chair and finally stop looking at the screen. A group of robots came to push John back into his chair. Wall hurried to find Eve, and to get closer to her, he asked Mary to step aside, making her stop and see the world around her for the first time. I pretended to be Eve's supervisor and took her to meet Otto, the spaceship's autopilot system, for a health check. Otto did a quick scan and woke up Captain McCree to report the results. Captain McCree, also lazy, didn't leave his chair. Hid under the table to observe him doing his dull tasks, from checking systems to giving daily reports to the residents. Eventually, McCree woke Eve up and saw that she had positive results. This had never happened before. When McCree pressed the button on the console, a video instantly played. The president of Earth appeared on the screen, explaining that the positive result meant that the robot had found plant life on Earth, which meant they could return. The console produced a manual that McCree checked for instructions. While McCree was busy, Wally tried to approach Eve, causing her to panic and quickly tell him to hide. McCree activated the robot arm to retrieve the plant, but when Eve opened her body, she was shocked to find the plant was gone. Otto thought she might be malfunctioning, and McCree dismissed it as a false alarm, canceling the trip to Earth and sending Eve for repairs. When Wally finally introduced himself to McCree, he shook hands and left some dirt on the captain's finger, so McCree sent Wally to be cleaned. As the robots left, McCree placed the dirt on a scanner to analyze, and was surprised to learn many things about Earth, continuing to ask questions to the AI. Eve and Wall went to the repair section, and Eve was forced into the hatch mode with special hardware. Waltels, Jacob E. Elemiast got treated the same way, but he dodged the robot arm and was eventually given a makeover by a malfunctioning beautician assistant. Then Wall-E was locked in a cage while Eve was being maintained. Wall-E thought this was torture, so he broke the cage with a laser beam and broke into the door to rescue Eve. The working robots tried to shoot Wall-E back to stop him, but he dodged and shot the control panel, causing all the cages to open and the robots to escape, seeing Wall-E as their savior. The broken robots took Wall-E with them. When they reached a hallway, a group of security robots blocked their path and took pictures of them to sound the alarm. The picture appeared on all the ship's screens, warning of the rebellious robot. The guards tried to catch them, but Eve immediately picked up Wall-E and flew away, hiding in a window until the guards left. Then Eve took Wall-E to the elevator, where he tried to befriend her, but since she was too angry about the trouble, she shot the screen to stop him from talking. When the elevator reached the compartment, Eve intended to shove Wall-E into a pod to send him back to Earth, but he refused unless Eve came with him. Suddenly, they heard a noise, and Wall-E went into pod mode to hide. A small robot, controlled by Otto, brought the plant to send back to Earth. Wall-E rushed into the pod to save the plant, but at that moment, the small robot activated the pod, and Wall-E was ejected into space. Eve immediately left the emergency pod and was also ejected. Meanwhile, Wall-E pressed all the buttons to stop the pod, but instead he accidentally activated self-destruct mode. Eve saw the pod explode and thought everything was over, but Wall-E suddenly appeared next to her, using a fire extinguisher as a jetpack. They both flew around until they met in the middle, and Wall-E revealed that he had saved the plant. Eve was so happy that she hugged Walla, touching her forehead to his, creating a small electric spark that felt like a kiss. Wall-E was surprised but also happy, and he used the fire extinguisher to dance with Eve. While Wall-E and Eve flew through space back to the ship, John and Mary finally enjoyed the beauty of the universe, and as they approached the window, they could meet each other for real. Wall-E returned to the ship and stealthily avoided the security robots. When Eve arrived at the captain's room, she safely handed the plant to McCree, who was very happy because they could now return to Earth. However, Eve interrupted to show McCree the video she had recorded about the planet, and McCree was disappointed to see that Earth was no longer the beautiful place it once was in the old pictures. But when Eve played the old film of Wall-E, the sound of music sparked a bit of hope, and McCree decided that if the little plant didn't give up, neither should he. When the film reached the hand-holding scene, Eve also started to think about it, especially when the footage suddenly showed all that Wall-E had done for her while she was asleep. Meanwhile, Wall-E found a way to look for Eve through a trash tube, and Mo followed him. The captain tried to order the ship to return to Earth, but Otto stopped him and demanded the plant. McCree refused and asked for an explanation. At that moment, Otto played another video, in which the president of Earth announced that the cleanup program had failed, and that the level of toxicity made life impossible on Earth, meaning the resettlement project was cancelled, and Directive A-113 would put the ship in permanent autopilot so humans would stay in space. Otto remained loyal to A-113, so it had taken Eve's plant when it first checked her. McCree noticed that the video was from about 700 years ago, meaning the information was outdated, and the plan to prove that life could exist on Earth should be reconsidered, so they should go back. Otto called the small robot to stop them, and when the robot took the plant, it was threatened. However, the robot reacted by throwing the plant into the trash tube, but at that moment, Wall-E crawled out with the plant on his head. Eve tried to reunite with Wall-E, but the small robot stopped her. Wall hid the plant inside his body, but Otto attacked with electricity and shoved him into the trash tube, then put Eve into Pod MO'd and threw her into it. Afterward, Otto locked McCree in a room to keep him silent. A while later, Eve woke up thanks to a MU's robot pressing her button and discovered she was in the trash processing room, where machines compressed trash into square blocks and then threw them into space. Both Eve and Wall-E were trapped inside the blocks. Eve used her gun to free herself, but she couldn't pull Wall-E out. The trash blocks were ejected into space. Suddenly, MO appeared and got stuck at the door inside. The thrust helped Eve free Wall-E from the trash pile, and she flew back to hold MO. The trash processing robots noticed the problem and immediately closed the outer door, helping all three of them get back inside. Wall wasn't functioning well, so Eve went to find a chip to repair him. Eve immediately picked everyone up and flew back to the main area of the ship. A guard saw them and alerted the others, but Eve pushed him aside and continued, while the rebellious robots followed her. Otto saw everything on the screen and activated MOR guards. McCree also saw and began controlling the console to initiate the transfer. The captain appeared throughout the ship to show Eve the instructions, pointing to the area where the plant needed to be placed. Eve and Wall-E immediately MU'd, but were surrounded by security robots. However, the rebellious robots immediately fought with the guards, clearing a path for the rescuers. Meanwhile, McCree displayed an image of the plant on the screen and called Otto, pretending to have the plant to mock the AI, causing Otto to pursue him. When Otto entered the room, McCree jumped up to fight, and during the struggle, he kicked the small robot out the window. After several attempts, McCree finally reached the console and activated the ship's movement MO'd. The robots began putting the humans into sleep mode to prepare for the trip back to Earth. The special capsule for the plant opened in the middle of the ship, but when Eve and Wall were about to reach it, Otto pushed McCree aside and controlled the ship to make the plant fall. All the humans were thrown from their seats, and Mary and John had to work together to save a group of children. 2 transport chairs also began to fall, but McCree managed to stop them just in time before anyone got crushed. Otto closed the special capsule, making Wall rush to hold it, causing him more damage. McCree tried to stand up and finally succeeded, allowing him to jump and strike Otto, shutting it down permanently. Afterward, the captain adjusted the ship to the correct position and checked Wall-E, then instructed everyone to search for the plant. MO, the rebellious robots, and the humans worked together to retrieve the plant and throw it into the capsule. This activated the return program and relieved Wall-E from the pressure, but he didn't function immediately. In just 10 seconds, the ship made a jump through space and returned to Earth. When the ship landed, Eve took Wall-E home and repaired him, shooting a hole in the ceiling to let sunlight recharge his energy. Wall-E woke up, but Eve was deeply disappointed when she saw that he didn't recognize her, even though she had shown him her movie collection. It seemed that Wall-E had lost his personality, and he only functioned like a regular robot. Eve approached him, said her final goodbye by holding his hand, and gave him a small electric kiss. This caused Wall-E to unexpectedly hold Eve's hand, and gradually his personality returned. They shared a sweet moment together, while McCree showed the humans how to plant trees. From then on, robots and humans worked together to rebuild society with a MOR eco-friendly approach. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching.